If you don't know with confidence that you can make 8 out of 10 putts from 3 feet around the hole, your decision making is going to be skewed and probably poor, frankly. I'm a big believer in soaring with your strengths, but understand that the facts are the facts. If I have no idea that, wow, I had 34 putts in this 9-hole round, it's just a number. But now that we know where we stand, we can work on creating the trend in the direction of your choosing, which is typically a lower score. What gets measured gets improved. It's as simple as that.
Hi, this is Robbie Smith from Lake City, Minnesota, and I play at the Jewel Golf Course. This is Golf Smarter's episode number 909.
What gets measured gets improved. It's as simple as that. With business and golf coach, Dr. Gret Anderson.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome to the Golf Smarter podcast, Greta.
Hello.
How
Glad
are
to be
you?
here.
I'm glad to have you here. I love having podcasters on because I know you can talk.
Yes, I can do that.
But a podcaster with a show called The Smart Golfer, it's like,
Yeah.
I got to find this one out.
Yeah. Well, yes, it's gonna be fun. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, of course. Let's start with your podcast. Why you started doing it and how you came up with the name The Smart Golfer, because we're kind of simpatico here.
Right. Well, I realize that I can talk, but one of the things that I really value is the depth of a good answer. Like, we would need to talk as much as we need to talk, but sometimes the answer might not be a 2-minute snippet. Sometimes it might require a little bit more depth. And so I was looking for a place and a space to do that because, frankly, that's what a lot of people were asking me for. They were saying, we would love to have a place where we can hear those, as a lot of my clients will call those, Dr. Greta-isms, right? And so it kind of began from there, part one. And then secondly, in terms of the name, I find that many of my clients, when we'll probably talk about this as we go on in our conversation here, but they come with such an amazing breadth of skills and attributes as humans, right? But when it comes to golf, they may feel a little bit intimidated or inadequate in some ways. And I just always found that to be unfortunate, but correctable, if you will. But one of the things that I encourage people with is that you can always become a smart golfer. You have the opportunity to do that, even if you aren't blessed with the greatest of athleticism and strength and distance off the tee and all those things. You can be a smart golfer, hence the name, the Smart Golfer Podcast.
And it was the reasoning for me to come at it in this direction was because I always believed that if you were a smart golfer, you can lower your scores a lot quicker than if you're just working on your mechanics.
I would agree. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what I'm trying to convey to them when I say that. Like, you can be a smart golfer. Smart golf is about playing what strokes and shots are best for you, not for her, not for him. And a lot of golfers, as you well know, fall prey to this, like, staggering, but getting them out of that habit before it even becomes a habit and empowering them to know that I'm a smart golfer goes a long way.
Goes a long way. Isn't it amazing how people will take the advice of their playing partners more frequently than they'll take the advice of a golf instructor? It's got to be frustrating for you.
Well, it's kind of like parenting in a way. That's kind of the analogy that I can talk about. I'm not a parent. I don't have, but I was raised by a great set of parents. And so I know sometimes they would be going like, what is this little girl doing? But I need to kind of fall and scrape the knee, if you will, to learn the lesson. And so sometimes it's like that. They kind of have to just figure out like, well, I was out there and I don't know why I listened to her. Well, we've kind of talked about this. And a lot of that also comes with understanding, being smart, right? Being a smart golfer, understanding all that goes into making the right decisions out there. Once they're equipped with that knowledge, you're not worried about what club Susie's using, to get over the pond. You're going to understand what club you need to use, or whatever the case may be. And but that the peer pressure is real out there on those fairways, as we like to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So tell me about your LPGA journey.
Mhm.
You're a PhD,
Mhm.
you're an accomplished LPGA instructor, but you're also an LPGA instructor for instructors, correct?
Correct.
Y-
Yes.
Busy, very busy, and quite
Yes.
accomplished.
Yes.
I'm very impressed.
Yes. Very busy.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. So, as you know, as you've observed, my background is in education and research, and so
Right.
I really, though I've done many things and continue to do many things in my life and my career, I've always, if you ask me to define myself, I'll probably revert to education. As my mom has said forever, even when I was kind of in denial, not denial, but I really hadn't given it much thought. She said, I would always say, Greta, if you like doing it, you're going to end up teaching it. And I would go, no, mom, no. And then I think one day she started rattling off all these things over the years. And I was like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's really how it's the great expression of myself when I have the skill and the passion to help people learn to do things really well. And in terms of golf, what I began to see very clearly was that, and understand even as a golfer, that it's as we work hard to grow the game and diversify and make it more welcoming, education is got to be a key component of that. Golf isn't necessarily the easiest thing to learn, but one of the big barriers to it is that it is challenges in learning, right? And the educational process in golf has been pretty traditional for a mighty long time. That creates some barriers. So if we can help to, if you will, make that a bit more contemporary, more reflective of society, when people see somebody like them, they can know they can be somebody like them. And so my great hope has always been that down the road, golf will be the proverbial rainbow in terms of players, instruction, all of that. But right now, there are a few issues inside the educational process that could use a little bit smoothing out. So my choice and decision was to use my expertise as a researcher and as an educator to help improve and innovate the landscape. And so the LPGA being, all about teaching and education in golf was just kind of the perfect landing spot.
Why golf? I mean, you
I
have,
love golf.
coming through with this education that you have
Yeah.
and the encouragement
Yeah.
that you have.
Yeah.
Why? What is it that drew you to golf to do that?
I love, first of all, I love golf. Right? It's super fun.
Well, yep.
And I just understood, like, I'm a very resilient kind of person, like, and I can be pretty stubborn in a good way, right? But particularly when it comes to sport, I have pretty thick skin. So you could tell me you see no talent and this and that, and I'll go like, okay, and I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to prove you wrong. And I found that to be the case, not for myself, but for others in golf. Like, they weren't having really great experiences as they sought instruction and, kind of trying to become a part of the golf global community, if you will. And so for me, that similar thing happened, which is kind of what kind of flipped the switch for me and made a decision. I played tennis. I played competitive tennis from the time I was a small girl all the way up into my early 30s. But I had a very significant hand injury, which essentially kind of ended that career, which I'm a jock, but I love sports. And so I really had to kind of figure out what I was going to do with this athletic energy. I mean, I'm going to work and do all those things, but I'm an athlete and I enjoy that kind of thing. So I was already playing a lot of golf at that point. And so I was kind of had a friend she was learning. And so we would play. And I was basically giving playing lessons. I just really hadn't thought of it that way. And she said, you're pretty good at this. You teach everything else, Greta. Why don't you think about teaching? And I'm like, it seems like a lot, this golf thing. I've just, So long or the short, I decided to go to the PGA show, kind of sniff around and everything. I ended up, I'll find my way, I'm a curious girl like that. I will find my way. And I ended up in conversation with a few people at the time. I believe she might have been the national secretary, woman, Deb Vangelo, master professional. And in dialogue, we began talking, and she said, you should kind of think about joining the LPGA. And I'm going like, oh, that seems like a lot of work. I've kind of got oh, by the way, I owned a manufacturing company at the time. I'm like, I kind of have this job, over here being the COO of this company. We'll think about it. And so she's like, I'm telling you, you need to come on over here. Fast forward another year. I'm back. She's like, well, something brought you back. And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of thinking about it and everything like that. So, I think another year may have gone by. This was a long process for me in that regard. The third year, she said, look, we need you here for a variety of reasons. You fit, right? You fit, and you can bring some unique value. And also, we're growing the game. So you need to come ahead and do this. So long and short, I jumped in, began the process. And I think it might have been probably 8 or 10 months later, I show up for level 1 education, and who's at the front of the classroom? Deb. And so my journey began. And so once I jumped in, I was all in. And so here we are. I don't have to do too many things. And once I got in, I loved it. And it just kind of, the way the cycle of life and business works, I was actually selling that business, that manufacturing business, and had a little time on my hands. And I thought about, what did I want my next entrepreneurial endeavor to look like? And I wanted it to be of service. And so I thought, well, I know how to build businesses, and let's build one which will be very fun, will serve a lot of people, and it could do a lot of good in growing something that I was really growing to fall in love with, which was golf. And here we are.
Here we are. Just in time to take a commercial break. We'll be right back. At what age did you start playing golf? When did you get introduced? Is this a family thing, or was you just the jock?
I am the jock, but my entire family plays golf.
Ah, okay.
They play way more golf than I do. Now, at the time, so your question was, when
golf instructor. Golf instructors don't play golf. They don't have time.
No, that's what people are like. You don't. When do you play golf? I go like never. Like I'm around it all the time, right? All the time. And most golf instructors, people will say like, well, you must be playing. Now, I'm not playing rounds. I hit every shot in the book every day. So my game stays, my shot making stays reasonably sharp. But we know that that's not necessarily the makings of a low scoring round. So I get around very well. I just don't play a whole lot. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. So yeah. But yeah.
You mentioned the barriers that were there. And I have to believe that being an African-American woman in the golf industry, the barriers are tall. The barriers are strong. How does that affect you and your community?
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. They are tall and they can be wide, and for many they seem insurmountable. And so I always view myself as an opportunity to help, kind of bring those down and shrink them and shorten them, right? And I know that's going to be a lengthy process because they didn't pop up overnight, right? But we have to, be consistent in chipping away at them, and also helping to create the systems that will facilitate bringing those down. And again, that's just kind of being systematic and systemic in that regard, but creating awareness on a lot of things that people may not understand are hindrances to participation, involvement, getting involved, whether that's playing or even seeing yourself with a career in golf, right? It's those small little things that, because golf doesn't, it's not a silo, right? It's part of society. So there are things that factor into whether or not, for example, can pursuit of your professional credential. Well, it's not inexpensive. It's not time consuming. you have to, it's not like some things where you can just get a certificate, take a test and certify. It's not like that. It's a very involved process. So if you're coming from an economically disadvantaged background already, you probably don't have a spare $15,000 sitting on, in the bank with weeks. It's a little bit different now as we've migrated and brought some of the educational programming online. But like, for example, when I went through, you went away. I would fly out to California or Arizona, whatever the case may be there, which means you're not working. So these types of things make it very difficult and challenging for people who may be coming from, a different life experience to just say, like, I want to do that, because even with the best of intentions, can't make it happen. And these are non-negotiables to getting into the teaching profession as a fully credentialed teacher.
Yeah. And being in Atlanta, where the barriers are still great, you have to be a fresh face that has the ability to communicate with a community that wants this instruction, that, is searching it out, and you make it so much easier.
You're exactly right, which is one of the great, I view it as an amazing opportunity, but it never ceases to amaze me, the amazing people who come onto my lesson tee and tell me, like, I've been looking for you.
Oh,
right. It's just amazing. I love my job for so many reasons, but that's one of the great ones that people say, like, okay, I'm in now. Like, it's not that they can't have an amazing experience with someone who doesn't look like them, but
right.
Golf is tough, man. Golf can be tough, for just the engagement, the involvement, the little things. Hey, showing up at a parking lot at a place you've never been. When you walk into the clubhouse, someone may be looking at you like you might not belong here.
Like, can I help you?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like, hey, I'm just walking in. I'm looking for the bathroom. I'm not trying to, steal anything, or, it's just for something where you're going to be paying. People go like, hey, I don't need that hassle. Yeah. And I want people to know that, every now and then you're going to run into somebody who's just, or whatever. We won't use bad words here, but,
we got the point.
That might happen, but I want you to know that you belong here. And so on my lesson team, most of my students, they may not, some of them remember it very explicitly, but I always start, particularly for new golfers coming out, I always tell them, I'm excited to have you here working with me today, but I'm more excited to have you in golf. Welcome to golf. You belong here, right? And we're glad to have you. Intentionality, it matters.
Yeah. Even in your game, your intentionality matters.
Yeah. And intentionality, it matters. But the choice that, you could do a million things, and you've taken the step, even though you're nervous. I mean, these are, I teach a lot of women. I teach predominantly women, though I too do teach gentlemen. But I'm always amazed. Like, these are like C-suite executives. When I ask them what they do, they may give me like, oh, I'm just an attorney. And then later I find I'm like, you're like not just an attorney, or whatever the case may be. But they come and they can literally be shaking in their poor little golf shoes. And I'm going like, it's just golf. And they're like, I know, but it's golf. And I want to free them of that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. And so you said you'll teach men and or women, but you prefer having women, and do you prefer women who are new to the game or just starting or are seasoned?
I love teaching all golfers, obviously teaching golfers at different stages of the journey are, you come with unique circumstances. I love, I have, it's, several of my clients that are, the low digit, no digit handicappers, as I like to call them.
Yeah.
They're the gentlemen who've been playing, and I have a couple ladies, but they skew toward the men. But those lessons are always fun because they're just different, right? They're conversational. They're more strategic. There may be some technical things, but oftentimes it's just a kind of a different they're in a different developmental stage. So I enjoy those just as much. I will say that the ladies have found me, because when I began, I really didn't say clearly who I was going to teach. I just kind of wanted to see who I would resonate with. Now, I've talked about my sports and that type of thing. I'm a researcher. And for many years, when I was in the corporate world, and even after that, I worked in the luxury hospitality vertical. So I viewed things like golf. Let's be real. Nobody's going to die if they don't play golf. I mean, sort of, kind of, but you know what I mean. It's not like food or shelter. And so I always view.
But golf will kill you.
But it will kill you, right? It definitely will. But I view like my offering, my service as I was taught to view a luxury experience. When you work in the hotel and hospitality environment, and in the 5-star hotels and that type of thing, as in the research arm, you learn that this is about service, because at the end of the day, this 450 square foot room at the Holiday Inn is the same as this 450 square foot room at the Mandarin. It's just that we've chosen to put some higher level mattresses and that type of thing, but it's more than anything, it's the service. So everything for me is about the service. And with that, women are just drawn to it, right? It doesn't have to be complicated, but it's simple, it's streamlined, it's service. And I'm here to serve you. It's hospitality. I'm instruction, but it's hospitality.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Let's take another break. We'll be right back. I want to talk to you about doing business on the golf course. We'll be right back. Greta, you have a really unique perspective in the sense that so many of the golf instructors I talk to, they're like, I loved playing as a kid and I thought, gee, I want to do this for the rest of my life. And golf is their life and, from start to end. Yeah. And as we kind of laughed about earlier, they're shocked to find out that they don't have time to play golf once they become an instructor, because that's their business. And they were never really trained in having a business.
Sure.
But you were in the corporate world. You've had your own company. Right. How do you approach doing business on the golf course? Or do you instruct people on doing business on the golf course?
I'm passionate about instructing people and helping them to understand what a valuable tool the golf course is. It's a business tool. It's a business skill, and it's a business tool. Many conversations are happening on the golf course. As I would often tell, people I'm speaking to, especially my clients, to go like, so on Wednesday afternoons, I teach pretty late. I start later, but I teach pretty late. And I will tell them on Wednesdays, I have to get here earlier than I would because I can't find a parking spot. And so all that to say, it's because everybody's at the office. They're doing business. Now, if you aren't getting invited to the golf course, you're probably missing out on some of the business, because after all, particularly if you're not, I shouldn't say particularly, but in the corporate world, we know that 90% of Fortune 500 leadership plays golf. We know that, and we know that increases with every level, Fortune 100, Fortune 50, so on and so forth. We also know that leadership, there's the head, and it as the body moves, so goes the tail, right? So it trickles down. The culture of golf trickles down. So it's like a language. I have not developed my multilingual skills very well, but let's just say I had a series of business associates and colleagues, and they were fluent in, let's say, French. And they were going to go out and they were going to have an amazing dinner at a great French restaurant and be in full flight using their French and their Franco skills and all that type of thing. I don't get much past parlez-vous français. So they're probably not going to invite Greta, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they don't like me. Doesn't mean they don't think I'm competent. Doesn't mean they don't respect me. But I don't have anything to bring to the table. I won't even know that they went out for the French dinner. They were like, well, we didn't tell you because you don't speak French and we know you aren't really crazy about French food. So it's the same thing that's happening when people know that you don't play golf. You're not familiar with golf. You don't know it. Why would I tell you we're going to tee off and play a quick 9 and talk about a few things on Friday afternoon if I know you don't know anything about golf? And thus you're missing the meeting.
Yeah.
With an S on it. Meetings, yeah.
So is it doing business on the golf course a smart thing? Is that the place to do business, or is it more a place to learn if you want to do business with that person?
I think it's both. I think that it's important to it's a great place.
We all know about what golf does for character, right?
Character revealing. It's the big one, right? It will tell a lot about each of us, how we handle ourselves throughout that round. So at that point, I've now identified, okay, we could do business, right? It can work. And it becomes a good place to continue doing business because we know that golf can foster relationships, right? It's a common ground. We can be very, on opposite ends of the spectrum on many things, but on the golf course, for whatever reason, things can come together. Moreover, most people who are in the positions of decision making value their time and only have so much time. But golfers are going to make time for that golf, right? So in many instances, where would I have an opportunity to have an ongoing conversation with someone for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours? Not many places, except the golf course. We can get a lot done in a round.
Yeah, and you can learn a lot about the person.
That's right. Right.
Control
I'm much more
yourself,
inclined
folks.
to relax and let you see my full self, because it's going to happen as during the round of golf, but it's accelerated on the golf course versus, let's meet at the office or meet for a drink or whatever the case may be. It'll happen on the golf course.
Right. So when you have these these beginner golfers, these new golfers, and
Yes.
from all these different places in the world they come from, is that part of your instruction about, the etiquette, the sensitivity of what golf is? Because we can blow that off and say, yeah, it's not that important. But when you're out there and you're playing on a regular basis or you're playing with strangers, that's the kind of thing that can really create a lot of talk behind your back.
Absolutely, you're exactly right. So let's just say for my class, Golf 101, I call it Let's Swing, right? In that, yes, we're going to learn how to swing. We're going to get that ball flying high, fast, and far, right? We're going to work on that. But all of those pieces that you just mentioned at our little graduation ceremony, we have not touched on that. You are going to understand all of those things because those are the big barriers I found, and I learned that in kind of my trajectory of teaching that hold a lot of people back, particularly the women. To an extent, a lot of ladies are wired a bit differently. I might know how to hit the ball, but there's a bunch of other stuff I'm not sure about. So guess what?
Yeah.
I'm not going to go out there until I'm pretty sure I know how to handle myself. I know where to stand. I know when I should talk, when not to talk. Otherwise, I'm like, you're taking lessons and you've learned how to hit a ball, but you didn't learn how to play golf.
There's a difference.
There's a big
to
difference.
You, what's the difference? And that's something that I talk about a lot. It's like I played with a guy who told me I can change my swing anytime I need. So if you see something, just let me know. I'm like, what's your index? I'm a 24. It's like, yeah, I don't think you can. But the guy talked nonstop and was like, yeah. And he was talking nonstop during the round. And it's like, dude, calm, just shh. Right? Yeah. I kept thinking of Hamilton, right? The show Hamilton. It's like, talk less, smile more.
Less. Right. Exactly. He didn't, I'm hoping if he just kept talking incessantly, unfortunately, he didn't know. Right. But you remember that.
Right.
Remember,
right.
I'm trying to tee off and this guy is.
I looked at my buddy, John, who introduced us.
Yeah.
During the round, I turned back and he goes, I didn't say anything. He just saw my face and he went, yeah, I get it. And I was like, let's not invite him back. Let's invite get this guy's phone number, but don't get his phone number. Let's just bump into him again if we have to.
Yeah. Exactly.
It goes on.
Right. And so
goes on.
those are the things that we don't want. So when we're, again, intentional about helping and coaching on all of those pieces, they feel much more equipped. And so, no, they might not hit the ball as crisply as they want to just yet, or those types of things, but they can navigate the course successfully. And my goal is to always have the ladies not feeling, anyone, I shouldn't say just the ladies, feeling comfortable and confident about accepting the invitation to play. I want them to feel comfortable and confident enough to initiate the invitation.
Absolutely. All right, let's take another break. We'll find out what's going on Golf Smarter Mulligans this week, and we'll come back with Dr. Greta Anderson. I'm just having too much fun here. We'll be right back. We've all been told multiple times that the key to our short game is turning 3 shots into 2. Simply put, if you can get close to the hole from inside of 50 or even 100 yards with your short game, you give yourself a better chance to taking fewer putts and hopefully have more gimmies. This week on Golf Smarter Mulligans, we have the first of 2 conversations with instructor Chris Fry, discussing which clubs to use and how to get yourself in position to getting close to the hole. This week's episode is called Learning the Perfect Pitch Shot Leads to More Gimmies.
The sweet spot on a 60 degree is a lot smaller because it's so open. The degree of loft is so high that the sweet spot actually shrinks. So I recommend 60 for my lower handicapper, better player, but I recommend the sand wedge for those higher handicappers that need that bigger sweet spot. Then from there, the stance is a little open. And the reason I like the stance to be open is I like to put weight on the front foot, which is the lead foot. In my case, I'm a right-handed golfer, so I put about 70% of my weight on my left foot, and I keep it there. Having my open stance and my weight on my left foot promotes a sharper angle of attack into the golf ball. That sharper angle is what's going to give us the height and the spin to pull off that shot.
That's episode 225 featuring Chris Fry in the first of 2 episodes on our sister podcast, Golf Smarter Mulligans, being released this Friday morning to get you psyched up for your weekend round. So please follow both podcasts regularly and never miss the next insight that could change your game. Golf's longest-running podcast, Golf Smarter, and Golf Smarter Mulligans that revisits the best of the Golf Smarter episodes. And they're both available from wherever you're listening right now. So what happened with your hand that made golf challenging and made you change your whole perspective on it?
So I had a really severe, like a combo, Guyon's canal and carpal tunnel. Those are the 2, tunnels, essentially sheaths that house the nerves in that run our hands. Well, I had the lethal dynamic duo decide to collapse. Boom, both of them. So Ouch. It really kind of, it was not cute. But and I had surgery to successfully repair it. But the problem is that it created quite a bit of scar tissue, and I have bony wrists there, so it's not a lot of space in there, and so the hinging and everything really causing problems, and it was painful, frankly. And though I am naturally left-handed, I played golf right-handed.
Oh,
and
why?
Yeah. So there was
why?
Because the first club I picked up,
it was a right-handed club.
Whatever, 1980, whatever, was my dad's club, and he's a righty. Well, right-handed golfer. So it was, and when I picked it up, I'll get back to the other part in a minute, but when I picked up his club as, I don't know, 10, 9, whatever I was, remember, as I mentioned, I've played tennis since I was a very small girl. I probably started tennis when I was 7. I was a little girl. But I'm old enough, I'm seasoned enough, however you want to term it, that when I began, I had a little wood racket. And the wood racket was about as big and heavy as I was, because I was a little string bean. But I began two-handed on both sides, right?
Oh.
So I was at the range hanging out with my dad one day randomly. He's hitting balls, and I'm, you know how kids do, just hang out and whatever. Yeah. And I remember saying, like, well, Dad, can I hit a ball? And, laid back as my dad is, he was like, sure. And he handed me one of his wedges or something like that, the shortest club in the bag. And he just went back to hitting. And I remember I was kind of standing there like, And I kind of figured out like, okay, well, the part that's supposed to hit the ball goes here. So that means I'll need to be standing here, kind of watching Dad. And I just grabbed the club, kind of like, if this is a two-handed backhand for a lefty, this is where I would be. So I just kind of dropped the club. And so when I hit the ball, though, I do remember vividly, my dad, like he didn't see me hit the shot, but like he froze watching the shot. And he kind of turned and he's like, do that again.
Do
and
that again.
I figured it out, and boom. And he's like, you're pretty good at that. And I was like, yeah, and everything. So I did. I took some lessons and because I remember him saying like, Dad's not going to screw you up. I'm not going to coach you at all. Like, okay. And I did. I was actually quite good at it. But I will say this. It wasn't that I felt unwelcome in the environment where I went to like the little junior camp. I just didn't feel super welcome. And so, there's only so much time in the day and that type of thing and so many resources. But I remember my mom saying like, well, where did you have more fun? And that was a no-brainer. It was over in tennis. I had a great network there. It was diverse. It was supportive. And that's where I landed. So though I don't feel bad like not having been like, a junior, accomplished junior golfer. I really wasn't much of a junior golfer at all. I didn't play that much as a junior. But I will say that my great hope is that, the little Greta, the next little girl who looks like me, not very far from now, even if she doesn't decide to play golf and she goes like, golf's not my thing. That's okay. I just want her to not choose golf for other reasons. She wants to do other things, but not for that reason.
Wait, was your dad a lefty playing with right-handed clubs?
Yeah, my dad is about pretty close to ambidextrous as you can get, but yeah, he still plays righty. Yep.
But he's left-handed naturally.
He's lefty. Yep.
Oh, and so he had the right-handed clubs because the way you said that he had right-handed clubs, it was like, wait, but he's not. So you got it exactly from him. Yeah. Explain the difference between, you see range rats out there. You see people who are like, get 2 large buckets. I'm going to be out here for hours.
Oh, yeah.
Really? Is that going to improve your game? What's that going to do? That's going to just solidify bad habits probably. But the difference between what a range rat does of just striking the ball over and over and scoop and hit and scoop and hit and scoop and hit versus playing golf.
Correct.
How do you explain that? How do you teach that?
Okay. So first of all, I do believe that there's a place and a space for range work, right? Because sometimes we're learning, we call it block, right? We're block learning, right? We've got to get the skill and hone the skill. And there's sometimes you just need to hit a few. But just as you said, grabbing the, double fisting on the buckets and going at it, it's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over, expecting something different, right? It doesn't work like that. So I tell people, I encourage, I can't tell people everything, but I encourage them to think of things this way. When you're out on the course, that's really where you can identify where you need, to work on development. And it's the application of it. After all, we play golf on the course. Sometimes people treat the golf as this formal place, like I've got to have everything in order to then go onto the course. And that's just never going to be the case. We're all works in progress when it comes to our game. But the more that's reinforced, it also instills kind of this fear in people like, well, I'm not ready for the course, right? I'm not ready for the course. I'm not ready to do this on the course. As long as you understand how to maintain pace of play and good etiquette, the course is for you, right? Which goes into why it's so important to help, early stage golfers to understand good etiquette and pace of play, because you can be a golfer of any experience level and get out on the course as long as you understand. You can't quite hold things up and know when to say when, right? But I encourage new golfers to get on the course, to get more comfortable and develop confidence. And also you'll be able to see how things work, how the dots connect, right? Because I can help you work on, you're working with your driver on the range. I can help you work with your irons and your hybrids and all the things on the range, but it's on the course when you're going to see how they come together, how you may use and your 7-iron here, but you may use, your 7 hybrid in this instance. I can only explain so much in this sterile laboratory, right? It's the application into the real world that makes the difference.
One of the things on your website talked about how you like to identify and address weaknesses, which I have found that a lot of golfers will not look back at the scorecard, or if they have a phone that they're using while they're on the course that shows them their shots and things, they don't identify what's not working. Like this 24 handicap was like, I can hit anything I want, but boy, I'm terrible around the greens. So why aren't you working on that? How do you help people understand that it don't just work on what's working? If you want lower scores, if that's your goal, I mean, we all have fun, but if your goal is to play better golf, you really have to understand how to identify your weaknesses.
Correct. What gets measured gets improved. Right? It's as simple as that. Right.
Wow.
If I don't know, if I have no idea that, I had 34 putts in this 9-hole round. You got to know the numbers. I mean, and I don't attach, and I encourage people not to attach a value to the number, right? A judgment to the number, right? The facts are the facts, right? As people would say, get out of your feelings, right? It's okay. It's just a number. But now that we know where we stand, we can work on creating the trend in the direction of your choosing, right? Which is typically a lower score, right? We can understand where we are and build upon that, right? If you don't know with confidence that you can make, 8 out of 10 putts from 3 feet around the hole, you're going to make your decision. I mean, and I'm just working the way back. Your decision making is going to be skewed and probably poor, frankly, right? If I don't know what I don't know, it's okay. Again, I think that people get hung up on attaching a value to a number, where I encourage people to understand your number so that you can build upon that, because I'm a big believer in soaring with your strengths, but understand that your challenging areas, your weaknesses, they will go one way or the other, right? So you can put some time in them, right? And that's okay.
As a golfer, not a golf instructor, but as a golfer, what's the best advice you've ever received?
Mind your business. And that means when I'm playing, if I'm seriously playing and I'm ready to score and that type of thing, I'm aware of what's going on around me, but I'm not dialed into you, right? I'm dialed into me, because making great shots across 18 holes, that takes some concentration and focus, right? And the reality is, as a golf professional, when you're playing, there are very few instances where you get to just play, right? Because while I might take off my coaching hat, most of the time when you're playing with people, that it'll slip in. Even with your best of friends, it'll slip in. Like, I don't know why I'm slicing. Greta, did you see that? No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you kind of have to draw that line, because you do. It's my nature. If I'm leaning, and I'm waiting on my turn and I'm in the fairway and I see you, I know exactly for the most part why that happened. I have to learn to turn that off. So for me, it's really about concentration and focus and minding my own business.
That is phenomenal advice. Because, the worst thing you can possibly do, especially with somebody you're related to, a spouse, a child, is give on-course advice. Don't do that.
Yeah.
When it comes out that I do this podcast and I'm like, hey, I'm not an instructor or anything. They're like, oh, but can you give me an advice? No, I don't do that.
Yeah.
But maybe during the round, I'll say, do you mind if I make an observation? And
right.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if
and it won't be on mechanics either.
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of escape it. It's a trick. I mean, it is a tricky thing. People are you the cruel thing, I guess I won't say cruel, but they know you saw it. I'm standing there and they're like, I know you saw it. I did see the shot. Well, what am I doing wrong? I mean, they know that I know the answer. I go like, let's
Right.
talk about it over
Later.
lunch. Let's talk.
Yeah.
But we've got 7 holes to go, Greta.
Yeah.
You're right.
But
You're
you
right.
can't fix it right now. Even if I told you what it was, you wouldn't be able
Look,
to fix it now. And it would only be in your head.
It's the rabbit hole. It's the drain, whatever you want to call it. The minute I go like,
Yeah.
look, so, okay, we've got, what? Forget I said that. I've learned, it happens, So that is the thing, just minding my own business and staying in my lane and just focusing on me, just even in a purely, if I'm playing amongst my peers, my lane, I can put the blinders on. And that's it. Yeah. So with that, then I play my best. I'm not worried about what you did, what I did. I'm going to play the course the way that it works best for me, what shots are working for me today, and so on and so forth. And that's it.
Where do you give golf lessons? I
teach at Steel Canyon Golf Course in Sandy Springs, which is right just northeast of Atlanta. Still Fulton County, so right next to the city.
Sandy Springs. And do you do remote lessons as well?
I do. I absolutely do.
How can people get in touch with you? How do they find you?
You can find me on all of the socials, as they say, at Dr. Greta Golf, DrGretaGolf. You can find me on my website, drgretagolf.com. And that covers it all. You'll find me there.
And your podcast, The Smart Golfer.
That part too, yes.
That part too. It was so much fun. I really hope we can do this multiple times because
that would be my great
learned a
pleasure.
lot and really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, I'm happy to report that Joanne and I are now fully recovered from COVID this time. And I'm back to walking a full 18 holes again. It wasn't easy, but I've made it. Now, since we were last together, I've played twice. The first was at one of my all-time favorite golf courses, and that's TPC Harding Park in San Francisco. Now, strangely, it's been 4 years since I last played there, but I was still battling fatigue of COVID during this round and only walked the front 9, had to ride the back, but still played pretty well, shooting 41-41. And the crazy thing, my last 20 rounds, my highest score is 86. My lowest score is 76. So my consistency right now is better than it's ever been. And it really does have everything to do with these interviews that I do on the podcast. But here's my favorite part about the story of playing Harding Park. The TPC Harding Park, especially holes 11 and 12 in San Francisco, are directly across from the dorm I lived in when I attended San Francisco State University in the mid-1970s. And 2 of my playing partners last week have been friends since we worked on that college radio station together. There were actually supposed to be 3 of us, but 1 had to postpone. And then my other round this weekend, what an outrageous round I had. You got to check this one out. 2 triples, 1 double, 1 bogey, 1 birdie, and those 2 were back-to-back on numbers 2 and 3, and then 13 pars, which included a couple of nice saves, and 34 total putts. And as we discussed with Dr. Gret on this episode, if you aren't paying attention to some of those basic stats, you're not really sure what aspect of your game you need to improve. So, fairways, greens in regulation, total putts, length of your first putts. Those are all important things to be looking at. And I'm using Arcos now on my clubs, and I look back at the round and like, okay, where did I screw up this week? How can I improve? It's a good way to do it. So just keep track of those stats. And I really look forward to getting Dr. Greta back on the show, as her insights, even those beyond golf, are pretty compelling. Again, her podcast is called Smart Golfer. Find out more at drgretagolf.com. DrGreta Golf. drgretagolf.com. Remember our conversation with Jerome Rufin, the young man who created a video channel called From Scratch to Scratch that documents his quest to become a scratch golfer? I hope that I wasn't too condescending about his naivete about the game, but I continue to watch his videos. not because of the train wreck that is his progress, but mainly due to the people he's been working with to improve his game. The last two videos I watched have featured Dr. Rick Sessenhaus, who's been on Golf Smarter episodes 806, 863, and will be back. And you may remember he was Colin Morikawa's coach from when Colin was a little boy all the way through winning 2 majors. Well, Rick's instruction is really worth the price of admission alone because he's such a great teacher of more than just the golf swing. And his patience is admirable. Shout out this week to Golf Smarter Ambassador Robbie Smith from Lake City, Minnesota. Hey, Robbie, thank you. Tell all your friends that you are now a Golf Smarter Ambassador and that you're on the podcast. Now, in addition to Robbie doing the intro for today's episode, he chose to receive a link to Tony Manzoni's The Lost Fundamental video as his thank you gift. So where in the world do you play and listen to Golf Smarter? Send me an email and you too can receive a free gift of your choice just for participating. Gifts include Tony's video, The Lost Fundamental, or maybe a box of Odin X1 balls with the Golf Smarter logo, or a glove and glove storage compartment from redroostergolf.com. There are links in the show notes and today's blog post for all three. So please write to me and I'll get back to you with some instructions of what to do and what to say. Send your request to golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com or click on the Hey Fred button when you visit golfsmarter.com.